Doesn't that steak look good? Check out this tip video and you'll look like a total pro and feel like you're dining at the best steakhouse in town.
Hi, I'm Chef Ange, and welcome to my kitchen. On today's episode, I want to show you 6 tips on how to make an amazing steak at home. You don't have to go out to an expensive steakhouse to have a delicious steak. Follow these tips and you'll make the best steak of your life right in your own kitchen. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you can find out when I drop new recipe and tip videos every week. Let's get cooking.
Check it out.
The first step towards cooking a great steak is buying a great steak. You want to find a steak that has really good marbling, has a nice fat cap on the outside, and is at least 1 inch thick. Any thinner than this, it's going to be hard to hit a temperature. The next thing we're going to want to do is bring that steak up to room temperature. Cold meat has a really time getting a hard sear, and it's going to be really hard to hit internal temperatures. My next tip is to infuse flavor into the steak, and we're going to use some fresh herbs like thyme and rosemary and garlic. Here's a trick to peel garlic: just pop it in between your hands and roll it, and off comes the skin. Isn't that easy? The next thing we're going to want to do is season the heck out of the outside of these steaks. They're at least 1 inch thick, so we're not going to get any flavor in the inside, so that means we got to season the outsides really well. Make sure that when you're seasoning the steaks, not only are you getting the top and the bottom, but you're also getting the sides. You're more likely to under-season the steak than over-season it, so go a little overboard if you're unsure. The next thing we're going to want to do is put a little bit of neutral oil all over the steak. We don't need a lot, just a coating on the outside. This is going to make sure that when we put the steaks in the pan, they're not going to burn initially. After you give these steaks a rub down, they're well coated with salt, pepper, and that neutral cooking oil. These things are ready to go for the frying pan. My next tip is to use a cast iron pan. They can get really hot, they hold heat really well, and make sure they get hot enough over 400 degrees. We're going to put a little bit of that neutral oil in there, and then we're going to put the fat cap right down. Make sure you press the fat cap into the pan so it lays nice and flat so it gets a nice good crisp. This is going to start to render out a lot of fat, and which is going to be our main cooking oil. If they start to fall down, you can just lean them up to the outside of the pan so they hold up. Once you see you're getting a good crisp on that fat cap, lay the steaks down and get that initial sear on the first side. Try not to play around with them, but lay them down and just let them sit. The longer they can sit untouched, the better you're going to get a nice crust on those. After a few minutes, when that crust starts to develop, flip those steaks over and hit the other side. Look at that beautiful brown golden goodness. That's where the flavor is on a steak, getting that good crust on the outside. Once you flip them, that's where we're going to infuse the flavor. In goes the garlic, the herbs, and about half a stick of butter. That's what I usually find is enough butter without being too much. Let that butter melt, and as it's melting, it's going to start to cook the garlic and the herbs, and it's going to start to pick up a lot of those flavors. Once enough of that butter is melted, grab some protection like an UV glove or a towel because the handle's going to be super hot. You're going to tilt the pan towards you and grab a spoon and carefully spoon the butter over the top of the steak. You're aiming for any of the areas that have crust because it's going to help soften up the crust and also help the crust pick up additional flavors from the garlic and from the herbs. After you give the steaks the flavor bath, let them chill out in the pan and let them come up to the temperature that you want. Right when you think they're coming close, we're going to get that last side of the steak. So this is the side that doesn't have the fat cap on it. Any area of the steak, we're going to want to get a crust because that's just more flavor on the outside in every single bite that you take. A little bit of butter, love, and these steaks are good to go. The easiest thing you could do to make sure you hit your temperature is use a meat thermometer. Check, and I like to pull my steaks at 120, 125. If you like to go a little further, go a little further. Right when they're getting really, really close and just a few degrees away, tilt that pan, get a little bit of that last flavor on top of those steaks, and put them back onto a wire rack so they can now cool. Which brings me to my next tip. Let those steaks rest before you slice them. I know they look really, really good, and you're really excited to try them, but they have to rest for at least 10 minutes. If you slice them too early, all of that juice and flavor is going to pour out onto the cutting board, and it's not going to stay in the steak. After about 10 minutes, take a sharp knife and cut them into pieces anywhere between a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch thick. Make sure you take your time and use a sharp enough knife because this is going to give you a really, really good presentation when you're serving that steak. Once you slice them, fan those pieces out so you can see the center. When you can show the center of the steak, you're showing people how it's cooked. Some people like it a little bit more cooked than others. Those pieces will be towards the end, and you like the less cooked pieces, those will be towards the middle. We'll throw 2 sprigs of rosemary on there just for presentation. Green really makes the color pop in the contrast of that dark meat. Now damn, doesn't that look good? The last time you saw a steak this good, you were at a fine dining steakhouse.
So now for a finishing touch, we're just gonna hit it with just a little bit of salt right over the top, just to make that flavor pop. This steak looks unbelievable. This looks like we went to New York City Steakhouse. Each of these steaks were 50 bucks. Let's see how we did. So if we're gonna eat one piece, we're gonna eat one of these center cut pieces. Look at that nice pink center, super duper juicy. Delicious. Super flavorful. This is an amazing steak. Well, I'm Chef Ange. I'm gonna eat the rest of this steak. Let me know in the comments how your steak comes out. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.